Hello and welcome to the M is for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abbie Halberstadt, happy wife, mama to 10, Bible-believing Christian. And on today's show, I have a fantastic guest for you who is producing content that is both godly and biblically based for your families. And I know that you're going to enjoy hearing from him. But before we jump into that, I want to highlight for you our brand new podcast sponsor, Purely Parsons. Elizabeth Parsons is a good friend of mine, and she and her family are committed to producing organic, high quality, small batch products for your family to use, like elderberry kits, essential oils. They have bug sprays. They have a hair serum, which is my favorite. And they even have a natural fragrance called Virtuous, which I actually enjoy wearing, which I cannot say is true for all natural fragrances. If you want to try out any of their products, you can at purelyparsons.com and use the code MIsForMama10 for 10% off your order. And as always, I want to highlight our podcast sponsor, Voetberg Music Academy. You have the option to get wonderful music lessons for your kids at home for a fraction of the cost, and you don't have to nag them to practice because Voetberg has a system set up to encourage and motivate your kids. Specifically for Christmas, they have a 12 days of Christmas music challenge that you can participate with other Voetberg Music Academy families. And I think you will find that a lot of fun. You can learn lessons in mandolin, fiddle, ukulele, piano, and guitar. Siblings can share lessons and get them for as little as $30 a month, especially when you use my code MIsForMama20 for 20% off each month that you're enrolled at VoetbergMusicAcademy.com. Guys, I have a great guest for you today. I actually had the pleasure of getting to meet Kirk Cameron on his show Takeaways with Kirk Cameron in summer. Was that right, Kirk?
I think it was the summer. I think it was, we tape earlier and then we edit them seasonally, kind of depending on when all the different topics line up with the holidays and things like that. So I think it was summer.
Yeah, I think I have it marked in my brain because my husband and my older boys were on a 12-day wilderness trip to Canada. So that was one of those things that was like, I know when that happened because I was solo parenting. It was a busy time.
Did they kill anything and bring it home for dinner, or did they just camp and hang out and look at things?
They did bring home some fish for us. So that's the takeaway from that.
Nice. Oh,
yeah.
I'm jealous. Tell him to invite me next time he goes.
He absolutely would. That's their favorite thing. They go they've maybe gone 3 or 4 times total, but lately, now that we have teenage boys, they've gone every couple of years and they love it.
That's so great. And I'm so glad that they do that. Now that I've got grandkids and my kids are all grown, I would highly recommend to always do stuff like that because they remember it forever. And that kind of family tradition is so good relationally. Whether the fish turns out to taste good, who cares if you overcook it? The fact that you just caught it is what matters.
Yeah, they definitely tell me that everything tastes better out there. Well, Kirk, you mentioned being a grandparent. And I know that you just had a new grandbaby really recently, didn't you?
I did. Actually, my daughter did. And she made us grandparents. And little Maya she's amazing. We're in love. We're over the moon about the whole thing. We're just like all the other grandparents out there. They just want to show everybody pictures. And we join the chorus of voices that say, "Oh my goodness, if I knew how great and wonderful grandkids were going to be, I'd have had them first."
Yeah, how funny. Yeah, I remember seeing a picture on social media of you baby wearing, and all the comments were just melting. They were like, "Hey, granddad baby wearing is the best thing ever." Do y'all have grandparent names?
Yes, my wife is Grandma Coco. Her name's Chelsea, so they call her Coco. And I was really going back and forth, and I didn't want some sort of like old grandpa, P-Paw, Paw, something like that. and so I talked to my daughter, and she said, "Well, I have another friend, and her dad has the grandkids call him Chief." And I thought, I kind of like the sound of that. Maybe I'll go by Chief. Yeah. She's only a couple of months old, so we have some time to work on it.
Yes, you do indeed. But you're going to have to start the indoctrination early. So maybe just decide and go with it. Well, you have a new program called Adventures of Iggy and Mr. Kirk, which I feel like dovetails nicely with your new career as a grandparent because it's for children. Can you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's a brand new, wholesome, family-oriented, faith-forward children's show that we're telling parents is going to be the modernized version of Mr. Rogers for our generation. And it's about with an adorable little green iguana that I'm raising at my house with my wife and daughter. He lives in our tree house in the backyard, and he's like a little 5-year-old kid, and he's having to learn the same kinds of things that our children and grandchildren are learning today. And it really takes place as part of a world where he comes from Freedom Island, and he has all these friends who live there, including a vulture named Culture, who's always trying to deceive him. And Iggy's got to learn lessons about honesty and truth and facing his fears and family, the sanctity of life. He's got to learn about the dangers of Marxism and socialism. And while that may seem a little over the top, like, wow, what are you guys, like produced by Fox News or something? No, but what we have to remember as parents is that 5-year-olds and even younger are being indoctrinated into trans ideology, LGBTQ religion. They're being taught all sorts of false and harmful things at 3, 4, 5-year-old, because that's when they're the most impressionable, through networks like Disney and Nickelodeon and others, through music, through television, through movies, and through the screens. And that's why we want to be there. And we want to talk with them about healthy concepts that they can grow up with and frame their world around. And it's called Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk. You know why Iggy is first is because he's got a little bit of an ego and or a really good agent. And they just made sure that Iggy was first in the title.
There you go. I like it. And I feel like you probably need to put your own spin on the cardigan that Mr. Rogers wore, for sure. Yes. I love that you say that these children are being indoctrinated, and that we need, I have said this several times before, and I don't know the origin of this claim, but I feel like it absolutely makes sense, which is that the first person that introduces a topic to our children is the one that our children consider the expert. And so when we have the opportunity to say that we will boldly proclaim truth to them, whether it's through media, whether it's through Bible reading each day, whether it's through living by example, I think that we need to really grasp those opportunities. So I love that you're creating this resource. You used to be in mainstream Hollywood. I mean, you used to work with Leo DiCaprio and other names that just your average person on the street would recognize. What made you come out of that?
Well, I'm still here. I'm standing right here now in Southern California, just out on the outskirts of Hollywood. And I love California. I love the entertainment industry. But as we know, darkness has flooded these kinds of places. And there came a time where I decided that I really wanted my work to align with the values of my heart. And when I came to faith in God out of atheism, I started working on projects that were very exciting to me. I never thought that I would leave Hollywood. I simply chose different projects to be a part of. And as I continued to do that, I started to be viewed as sort of a Hollywood outsider. That type of thing. In fact, some of my kids just sent me a TikTok video where there's like 4 people permanently banned from Hollywood, and I was the number one person. And I think that means I'm doing something antithetical to the values that the Hollywood establishment wants to be about. And Absolutely. That's actually good, positive news to me that I'm heading in the right direction. So the other encouraging thing is to know that Hollywood was synonymous with art and entertainment, certainly in terms of like movies and TV shows, but it is no longer. Hollywood is so out of touch with the values of most of America, and art and entertainment like movies and TV shows are now being produced in Atlanta, in New York, in the Midwest, and anywhere where somebody has a camera and a computer. With social media, that industry has broken out of the 4 walls of Los Angeles, California. And so now we're producing from Tennessee and Florida and Texas and everywhere else.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned coming out of atheism into Christianity. Can you briefly share your testimony?
Yeah. I was Lost and now I'm found. How's that for brevity?
That's brevity. Yep, for sure.
That's brevity. Okay, we'll do a little more. Let's see. I grew up not going to church, wasn't a Christian, didn't come from a Christian home. Although my mom was a Christian, just never really talked about it much with us as kids growing up because my dad wasn't so down with that. Anyway, when I was on Growing Pains, I ended up meeting someone who took me to church, and I heard the gospel message. It really started making me ask a lot of questions. I got some really good answers to some pretty big questions about science and history and just existential questions. You know, who are we? How did we get here? Where are we going when we die? And that led me down a road of becoming persuaded that Jesus was more likely who he said he is than just a myth or a fraud. And so I started going to church. I got baptized, started reading the Bible. That began to really change the way that I think, and it reset my values, and I began to live that way. And as I've continued down that path, the Bible has been my guiding star for being a husband, a father, somebody who works as an actor, and as a patriot. And so here I am today, and I look back on 45, 50 years and say, this gospel has served me well, and I'm so very grateful.
Yeah, what an opportunity to, in turn, serve the gospel through the content that we produce and the influence that we have over culture. You're not just doing children's programs. You are doing a TV program. You have all kinds of irons in the fire, it seems like. And one of them is that you do these story hours. Can you tell us about that and kind of the blowback that you've gotten from those?
Well, essentially, I wrote a children's book called As You Grow, and it's a little book teaching children through the story of an acorn that turns into a big oak tree and all the difficult things that happen to them through the seasons of life. I teach kids how to grow the sweet fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. And I wanted to read it in a public library like so many others have been doing with their books. And I was denied by over 50 woke libraries that previously held drag queen story hours for those toddlers. And I went and told some friends at the news. It became a big story on Fox News. And I put them on blast and let them know that this was unconstitutional and that I would see them in court if they didn't reverse their ruling to ban me from public libraries and keep parents from hearing good, wholesome material. And they reversed course. I went there and was greeted by thousands of parents and grandparents at all of these libraries, or most of them, all across the country, in places you wouldn't think, like New York and DC and LA and Seattle and San Francisco, all of these places. And that led to a nationwide movement of people taking back story hours and recognizing that the sacred responsibility of telling stories to children and framing their world with the right kinds of heroes and pointing out who the true villains are belongs to parents, not to men dressed in stilettos and miniskirts. And if we continue to outsource our parenting to the government or to other organizations, even the church, that's not their responsibility. That is our job. And God has provided us with helps like institutions, like the church and like civil government, but they're not moms and dads. They're not parents. And these parents are heroes coming out of the woodwork, stepping up and leading the charge. I'm so thankful for them. And that's encouraged me to take these stories we're writing and turn them into a television show for kids. And now that's making waves in Hollywood and across the nation. So I'm so excited to see that if we just do what we can with what we have, God will multiply what he loves.
That is so, so true. And I think that one of the messages that you're sending that is going to encourage my listeners and anybody else that stumbles upon this is that we are not alone in seeking and wanting truth. We are not alone in desiring wholesome options for our kids and teaching our kids character and values that are based on biblical principles. I think there has been this push, especially for a long time, but especially in the last 4 to 5 years, to kind of isolate the common sense, traditional parent, Christian parent's voice and make it sound as if we are extreme and we are somehow damaging our children or putting them in a bubble. Yeah. And so I love that when you stood up and said, no, this is good, right, and true, and it is discrimination to take something that is good, right, and true and push it in the corner, that people showed up because they felt so empowered to do that. Can you talk about what it's been like a little more to be online and to be pushing back against that culture? I'd say since 2020. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we were under house arrest for quite a while here in California under the mandates of our governor, who made us stay home. We couldn't go to church. You couldn't go to the store. You couldn't open up your business. Couldn't go to school. Now, if you wanted to go get some weed at the weed shop or get an abortion or go to a strip club, those were open, but only the essential services, of course. And during this time, we had the election fiasco and all the craziness that surrounded that. And I thought, instead of just sitting and waiting to find out about Biden's first 100 days in office to see what he does to unravel everything that the previous administration had done, I decided that we as the family of faith ought to have our own 100-day plan. And I figured it ought to come out of the Bible. And I really liked 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I'll hear their prayers, forgive their sin, and I'll heal their land. And I'm going, man, that would be like the greatest thing ever. That's what we need. And so I started praying and repenting publicly of my sins and calling out things that we could change as a nation and studying the founding principles that our forefathers and foremothers understood in the Bible on Facebook Live with the nation. And that led to all kinds of wonderful things. Like, while everybody else was scared and isolated at home, I was meeting with people voluntarily at the beach in California, having nighttime bonfires, singing Christmas songs around Christmas time, and meeting in open parking lots, talking about our liberties and our freedoms and all the things that were going on that were not right. I think this was bravery training. And these are the kinds of character traits that we need to have right now. Faith, courage, honesty, compassion. Because now that the election is behind us, I believe, this is my view, is that we have an unprecedented opportunity in our lifetime. I think we had a bullet just narrowly miss the entire nation of the United States. I think it just grazed our ear on election day. If it had gone the other way, I think it would have been devastating to liberties in this country. It would have been devastating to Christians and conservatives in this country. And we've been shown mercy, and we now have an opportunity to exercise that compassion and love for truth and bravery and an understanding of biblical principles, not only in civil government, but getting back to the Bible in our churches and getting back to the Bible in our homes to really build a strong culture that won't fall for this garbage anymore.
That's so good. And I feel like that is something that I literally just on last week's podcast, it was just a brief kind of encouragement to what I call the mama bear, but I'm seeing the dads rise up as well and lead. And to the mama bears that basically said, nope, I will not be cowed any longer. I will not be pushed in a corner. I will not be told how to this list of things. And I love that I had so many people tagging me on social media saying that they took their kids to the polls with them. Like their children were watching them stand up.
And that sounds like what we should all be doing, right? Just like that's just a good thing we should be doing. Like, I want to take my kids with me in all the things that I do. We take them to the grocery store to show them how to buy food. I take them underneath the sink when I've got to fix the plumbing. I show them how to mow the lawn. None of that even comes close to the importance of understanding the sacred duty that we have, particularly as Americans with a unique form of government where we are the government, to take our children and show them the importance of voting and how to vote and who to vote for. according to values, principles, policies, and all that stuff. But we don't. And isn't this great? This actually has been the catalyst that is getting parents to do that.
Yeah, I really have seen a huge movement toward being bolder, toward being more truthful, toward not apologizing for faith and for unpopular opinions. And in the process, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I feel like we have started to wake up to the fact that some of the loudest voices are some of the most fringe voices as well. They're not representative of what most parents want for their children. And so I love that you're producing content for parents and for children that can help them be the first touch tones for these hard conversations and to help teach these hard concepts, like teaching a 5-year-old what Marxism is. That's honestly pretty easy to do. You can just kind of take all the toys and redistribute them, and then they get really mad, or like, that's not how that works. Come on. But tell me a little bit about where we can find all of your content and where readers can find what you have to offer.
Well, I'm really excited for everybody to see Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk. You could go to Watch Brave. That's Watch Brave. Brave Books is the company that I'm making this show with. WatchBrave.com to see a trailer and see how you can get behind and support this movement, because we want it to be free for everybody, and we're counting on people's support. You could also follow me on social media. You could follow me on Facebook, Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel and a podcast called The American Campfire Revival.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today to share with us, Kirk, and best wishes and God bless in all of your endeavors. We really are so grateful for voices out there that are standing for biblical truth.
Well, thank you. And how wonderful it is to know that God's working all things together for good, including the last 4 years, maybe especially the last 4 years. And this is, I believe, going to be our finest hour. So thank you for all that you're doing, and God bless you.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
If you enjoyed the M is for Mama podcast, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and follow along, maybe share with friends, or even leave a review. And if you want more content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, be sure to follow along on Instagram at m.is.for.mama.